Welcome to the Golf Report podcast. I'm joined by Lauren Clark, senior on the women's golf team at the University of Kansas. Lauren, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah. So just tell me how are things going and just tell me about, you had a pop qualifier. Just tell me how are things going and just tell me about, playing golf, in your off season right now.
I mean, off season's a little different. We actually
Mhm.
have time to train. When you're in the middle of season, you're just constantly going.
Yeah.
We had 4 tournaments in 6 weeks, so you're really just in that constant grind mode.
Mhm.
Now that we're, a little bit of downtime, you have more time to build it up, make things better. Looking ahead at the spring, we have more opportunities to win. So we really
Yeah.
wanted to focus and get a game plan right moving forward for the spring. It's just time to work the plan now.
Yeah. So your team's last tournament was in the Bahamas. It was about a month ago. So, what have you been up to, about the past month since returning from the Bahamas? And, are you done with tournaments, until your team plays, again at the end of January in Arizona, or do you have any tournaments over the winter?
Definitely want to keep the competitive juices going. So
Hmm.
for me, I know a lot of my teammates, they're going to play at least one tournament over that Thanksgiving to winter breaks time frame.
Hmm.
So I'm going to play the Sally, which is the South Atlantic Women's Amateur. It's in
Okay.
Florida, about an hour and a half drive for me. It's known
Hmm.
for having really good food. I love playing that event. Um, for us, getting back from the Bahamas, it was
Hmm.
midterm week. So
Okay.
we kind of got back, hit the books, and just had that time for analysis, building plans, and again, we're just kind of working that plan from now.
Yeah. So you mentioned you like to be competitive. You mentioned, you're going to play at least one tournament, over your break from college golf. Tell me about, why do you like being competitive? I've talked to some, coaches and players who said, they like to, take a few weeks off from golf, but you're still playing and you said you're going to compete at least once. So just tell me about, why you like to compete over your break, that you have for your few months, with college golf.
I think it's such an advantage to
Hmm.
play over the break because there is kind of this competitive rust that if you wait from end of October for us, we was fairly early October
Okay.
going through February, really for most teams. You lose that little edge, that little like gritty edge that you get from just constantly playing. And you can go out and you play with friends, you have competitions like that, but having that tournament edge of every shot matters, there's no do-overs. There's, it's now or never. That little edge that you get from it, that's that competitive edge that you're trying to build. And it's super easy, you take a month or two off, it's hard to knock that rust off. So you kind of knock that rust off for us in that single event you're going to play on your own. And then for us, we come back as a team and we play a 1 day early event. And that's same type of ideas, coming back and knocking that tournament rust off.
Yeah. So you're from Orlando, and you go to school at Kansas. So do you get to go back home to Orlando, either at Thanksgiving, and or your winter break? Just tell me, how often do you get to go back to, your home?
It is a 21-hour drive from
Okay.
Orlando, where I'm at, to Lawrence, Kansas.
Okay. So
I do
you,
that trip twice a year. I only
okay.
do that at the beginning of the fall semester and then at the end of the spring semester. And I
Okay.
try to fly the rest of the time. Everybody goes to Orlando for Thanksgiving. Gotta go, check out the theme parks.
Hmm.
So the prices of tickets are just so expensive to get home. So I stay for Thanksgiving break. And then as soon as I can leave after finals in December, I go home and I'm going to stay there. Luckily for me, a lot of great amateur events are in Florida for the winter, so I
Yeah.
don't have to leave. I don't have to go very far. If you're talking internationals that want to play in the States over winter break, or just people from a colder environment than Florida, they're having to travel and that break gets shorter. For me, I feel like I can capitalize a little bit more on that break being from Florida and having it just nicer weather.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, my brother's actually coming up for Thanksgiving, and we're gonna go to a couple football games, have some fun around there. But he's coming up to me. I don't get to go home for Thanksgiving.
Yeah. So, when you get to go home, you mentioned you only get to go twice, but when you go home, do you play a lot of golf when you're over, um, when you're back home, over break? And, when you're home, what courses do you like to play at, when you're home?
So for me, when I'm home, I
Mhm.
probably play at least 9 holes every day.
Okay.
For me, that's how I practice best. Is
Mhm.
like me and my coach, Dean Hartman. we go out and we'll play worse ball, we'll put ourselves in terrible spots, and you're working on mechanics through actually doing. And for me, that just engages my brain in another level and it makes my progress so much faster. And that's how I actually train the best. We do a lot of short game drills, but instead of just being a range rat, I just go and play as much as I can on the course. I'm
Mhm.
very fortunate where I'm at a course that has 27 holes now at Royal St. Cloud. Love to go out there, and there's always somewhere where I can just go drop and hit shots. If I'm struggling on par threes, I can just go take a par three for the day. And that's a huge advantage. Growing up in high school in the first 2 years of college, I was actually I played at UCF's course that they're coming up
Mhm.
for the spring at Eagle Creek.
Yeah.
So I played there hundreds of times over
Yeah.
the last 6 years.
Mhm.
And I think that's a huge advantage going into that tournament. But um, Evermore Resorts is another of my favorite courses right now. Perfectly manicured, hardest course I've ever played.
Yeah.
And I love that challenge. And so between those three, I
Mm.
feel like I have a good setup where, Evermore, I don't get out there very much at all, but I love that course and it's hard. You got to go grind, you got to go score. Eagle Creek is definitely set up to score. And then Royal St. Cloud's
Mm.
that perfect practice facility where there's always room for me to go.
Yeah. So you mentioned, which we'll get into more throughout our conversation, but your previous home course was Eagle Creek, and now Royal St. Cloud is your home course. So just tell me about, why did you change, home courses from Eagle Creek to Royal St. Cloud, and just tell me about, Royal St. Cloud, being your new home course.
Royal St. Cloud is definitely the members course in Orlando, like the
Okay.
local course. They keep it very affordable, 27 holes. The greens are amazing,
Hmm.
and they keep reinvesting into the course. So it's been a great course, and now it's getting even better every time. They've actually made a couple of course renovations here recently where it gets even better and it gets a little bit more challenging. But I moved from Eagle Creek to Royal St. Cloud with my golf academy, and again with my coach. Very loyal. Loved working with Dean Hartman for the last however many years, going over 5 now. And just having that consistency and that coaching and transferring over with the Henry Brunton Golf Academy is where he works out of. And I've interned the last couple of years with them as well, but just transitioned over with them.
Yeah. So you go to school at Kansas. Obviously, at Kansas, it's not like you're home in Orlando. You can't play outdoors all year round. Like right now, you're getting to play because it's in the 60s, in the highs. But for you and your team, what do you work on, in the winter? Like, do you do a lot of indoor stuff, whether that's, hitting indoors, hitting on a TrackMan, just working on short game. Tell me about, what do you and your team, work on in the winter in Kansas, to get ready for the spring season?
This year has been great weather. Normally, we're not outside every day in the middle of November,
Yeah,
and that's a huge advantage, and we're absolutely going to capitalize on that. But we know that at any time, and probably next week, now that I'm mentioning it, it's the weather could flip.
yeah,
So you really have to pay attention during off season to what can you do. And if you get a good weather day, you have to capitalize on it. You have to, if you're looking to play once a week, but you want to work on technique at the beginning of the week, but then your weather's good at the beginning of the week, you got to change your plan around and you got to take advantage of that. Um, at the University of Kansas, we have great resources. We have great indoors. So it's not a huge disadvantage for us to go indoors. We have this big putting green in our facility. We have 7 hitting bays. We have a TrackMan simulator. We're fully equipped. I think the biggest thing for us is watching, we want to get better at technique, but we have to watch out for getting too technical. Not everything needs to be perfect technique wise, it needs to be repeatable. And that kind of mindset difference, you have to know, take half the course out of play. Make it to where you can do the same thing and you get increased consistency, and it doesn't have to be cosmetically perfect. So that's something we're always very careful of. So we build a lot of assessments and TrackMan combines, different little competition drills, grab a buddy, go play a putting or chipping game. Having that little bit of how am I improving without getting too technical is kind of the key.
Mhm. So Lauren, so in the spring season, your team gets to play, in Arizona, Florida, and California. given that, you go to Kansas, so you're in Kansas, you can't play outdoors, all year round. I'm interested to know, how does your team, prepare, and feel, prepared going into these, tournaments compared to, other schools, let's say in Arizona, California, Florida, these states, where they can play, outdoors year round, how does your team prepare, to, feel prepared, for these tournaments in the spring, or does your team, learn a lot as you go because, you haven't played outdoors maybe for a couple of weeks?
I think
Hmm.
one of the things that Coach Cool, our head coach, is very good about
Yeah.
is scheduling the first part of the year. And we go down before school starts, we take a trip to Arizona, get outside, play, qualify, start to build that internal competition back up in the team, see where you've been over winter break. And everybody on our team is very dedicated to when you go home working with your coach. And again, because we're doing that assessment so periodically, we're seeing that measurable improvement.
Hmm.
So then it's just getting that tournament rust off. So I know a large majority of us are playing winter tournaments, and then we come back and have that travel trip, and then we have a 1 day tournament. And that is trying to give us a little bit more of a competitive edge against the warmer climate schools to where we're already knocking that tournament rust off before a lot of teams have even played. And so that scheduling kind of helps us catch up from that slight disadvantage. But we're still, if it's 40 degrees, we're going to go out and play.
Okay.
We are going to be a very tough-minded team because 40 degrees to us is great. We haven't had that opportunity, of nice weather. So when it's bad weather, which you see a lot in the spring, we
Hmm.
are competitive in our mindset to take advantage of that.
Yeah, that's great. Your team did show tough-mindedness this, fall. So let's get into the fall season. It was very successful for your team. 3 wins at, the Bahamas, Fall Invitational. You won your home tournament at the beginning of October, and then you won the Red Sky Golf League Red Sky Classic in Colorado. So 3 wins and then, seventh at the Folds of Honor. So let's get into the Bahamas Fall Invitational. Your team won, shooting 15 over. It was, difficult conditions. The first day got canceled due to I believe it was heavy rain. So just, tell me, how did your team, navigate the first round being canceled due to, the rain?
At the time it was canceled, I want to say we had the lead.
Okay.
So like, we were feeling pretty good. And again, we weren't letting the conditions get to us. The conditions were brutal. The wind in particular, that was the main factor of it was going with the ocean because we were right there on it. And a couple of the ocean holes, you started having waves start coming into play.
Yeah.
And that's a completely different thing. You're thinking, okay, I can deal with rain and wind. What
Hmm.
happens when the ocean comes up on the green? And so we had all this rain, and the course had just been soaked for the last couple days. So we had already turned the pars was manipulated each day. So we actually played a par 71 for what ended up being round one, but was scheduled for round two. And then
Hmm.
we went back to par 72 that final round. But we were prepared. I was a little grateful to get to restart. I struggled on 2 holes, and so that restart for me was okay, take the opportunity you've just been given and let's go do this. That first round of competitive play where we put scores in, we were a little bit behind, but we knew with it being a 2 day event now that we could just sprint this out. Nobody was really out of it. We could sprint it, but we had to make that happen and we had to push. Even par was going to be a great score on that course for any of those days. And you just know that you have to grind it out. There's going to be bogeys, but you've got to capitalize on the birdies when you can get them. And there were a couple times where you'd have wedges in and you had to get it on the right holes because you'd have that crazy wind. Remember in the practice round, we were hitting 9 iron 70 yards. Just wind, it would take off and almost come back at you. So we had this huge amount of wind. You have this rain, and then you have the opportunity to go out and, you know, really great field at the top of the leaderboard there. Why not go sprint it out and go beat some good teams?
Hmm. Yeah. So yeah, the second round, which was your final round because the original first round got canceled due to rain. Your team shot three under par to get a two-stroke victory over Purdue. I was interested to know your team shot three under, and the next, closest score for that round was, seven over by Baylor. So just talk to me about how your team, shooting three under par and you shot even in that round. Just, talk to me about your team, shooting three under par and, shooting 10 better than the next team.
Absolutely. I think for us, what came into play was we're used to bad conditions,
Mhm.
right? Every time we get good conditions, we're happy. That's something we're not used to. We get a lot of wind here in Kansas, and we were prepared to play in the wind. You know, safe to say we were the best wind playing team. Particularly, I think that showed on par threes where we were able to control it, hit it. We knew exactly how far it was going to go, and we had that extra little bit of control with our wind shots. Huge factor in that tournament for us.
Mhm.
What I will remember for the rest of my golfing career was it was a shotgun. So we're all coming in and we're starting to see the leaderboard develop. More and more live scoring scores are coming in because normally like one of us in our group are doing it. But in this event, because we're out of the country, no one had data. And so we couldn't do it. And we were very reliant on volunteers. So all of a sudden, we're within one shot and we're going, oh, wait, we have two more players out there. Furthest point from where we were. But we're like, okay, we are going to book it. And so we started running down the hills of this course to go and watch. And ultimately, we saw a great par save from Lila. And then we saw this great birdie on probably the hardest hole on the course from Lily. And we ended up winning by two. But we were able to be there as a team because we came in and we sprinted all the way out. And we
Okay.
were just so excited. But as that leaderboard started to form, we're going, oh, wait, did we actually just do that? I we were all playing well, but we didn't know where everybody else was. So as it started to form, we got more and more excited, and we just took that out by running down the hills.
Mhm. Yeah, so you didn't know when where everyone else, stood. When did you find out, that your team ended up winning? Given you said you didn't know where everyone stood.
We knew it was going to be close, and with how they did live scoring,
Yeah.
it really came down to, okay, does anybody, can you go ask what people shot in that group and start piecing it together? And then you
Okay.
have to wait for the scorecards to be final.
Okay.
So it was not until the very end that we could actually see that. And then the guys that were doing the big giant scoreboard came up and they go, Purdue had been sitting there this entire tournament until the last three holes. And it was that last three holes for us that flipped us from, you know, second, third, all the way up to one.
Okay. Yeah, I was just interested to know because I've, volunteered at college tournaments where they've had, you know, you mentioned, you couldn't look at, online due to being out of the country, leaderboards, but, I've worked at tournaments, college, where they've had manual leaderboards. So I was just wondering if they had any of that, and if, kind of where you stood, at the end of the tournament.
It really came down to when the
Okay.
cards were signed.
Yeah. So you were in the Bahamas. How fun was it to go to the Bahamas? Did you get to do anything outside of golf, or was your team mostly there just, to golf and, playing the tournament?
We are always very focused when it
Okay.
comes to our tournaments.
Hmm.
However, this one was very special and it had a really great water park. And with that first round being canceled in particular, I was at the water park a
Hmm.
lot at that tournament. I had a blast. A lot of the girls came out for part of the times, and even our assistant coach went out and enjoyed the water slides too. But we were out there almost every day, not at the beach because the wind was too much, but we were at the water park a lot. And that event, we started early in the morning, so we had our entire afternoon where we were still able to go to the water park, have dinner, and do homework, and still have plenty of rest.
Yeah. Was this a water park like at your hotel?
We stayed at the Atlantis Resort,
Okay.
and so we all grew up watching the commercials in the fun water park. And so it was kind of one of those dream moments of I remember watching that on the Disney Channel, and now I get to come and ride all the rides, and that was extra cool.
Yeah. So finally about the Bahamas, obviously, your team won. That'll be most memorable. But getting to play in the Bahamas, what will be your favorite memories you'll take away, from this experience, getting to play in this tournament?
Program record winning three tournaments in a row. Never been done before at the University of Kansas. So we
Okay.
knew what was kind of on the line. It's hard to win in college golf. And so we already had two. And then we got three, and that was extra special. But again, that memory of us realizing, oh, wait, we're so close. We need to take off and go run. That's going to be a core memory for me. And then I think just knowing like we were in such a good place as a team that we started putting rounds together as a team. I think sometimes that can be really hard when you have a team of great depth, is making sure everybody's playing well on the same day and
Yeah.
kind of getting that together. But we just had really good chemistry, good connection. We had a good balance of being very focused, but being very grateful for the opportunity. We got to go
Mhm.
out of the country. I mean, that's such a cool opportunity as a program to, go somewhere fun, go to a
Yeah.
place with a great water park. We were so grateful and that we were going to be competitive because we were already just grateful for the opportunity to be there, but we wanted to win.
Yeah, I didn't know. 3 wins in a row for your team. That was a program record, so that's great. Um, so Lauren, your team, you have players from all over, all over the U.S. and from many different countries, like Austria, UK, Sweden, South Africa, Norway. So given that, your team is made up of players from, several different countries and from all different places, just talk about, is your team pretty close and just talk about, the relationships and how close you are, with your teammates.
We are very close as a team, and that's one of the things that Coach Cool helps to orchestrate is that culture of being close, being family.
Mhm.
We are outnumbered as Americans right now. We are 60% internationals, 40% Americans. So that we have this kind of language barrier at times where we'll
Okay.
laugh. Um, my dear friend from Austria, Johanna, we are together all the time. Love her to death. We will go do everything together. She didn't know what buffalo chicken was, and she thought it was a chicken that was extra big. And so she doesn't like spicy things and kept ordering the buffalo chicken. And
Mhm.
like just little stories like that where you're like, oh, wait, I didn't realize that I used a different saying. And wait, does that translate well? Like, how does that work? We go back and forth on a lot of stuff like that, but we are so close, and most of us live together. So I live with Ruth, who's from Norway. We have a group of four that lives together. Like everybody's very close, and we, as a golf team, we're a small team, so it'd be really easy to kind of break away, but we prioritize it as a team to make sure that we are spending time together on and off the course. You have to beat out half your teammates for us to make it to the tournament, but everybody's part of the success, and you have to make sure that everybody feels they are involved and they have a role on that team. And that's something that, particularly going into off season, Coach Cool is definitely pressing to us is, hey, know your role in the team. How can you help make everybody better? How can we make you better? Looking at it as an individual and uplifting the team as a group of individuals.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great to hear your team is very close. So Lauren, I wanted to touch, quickly on your team's other two victories this fall season. So first, in the beginning of October, your team won, your home tournament, the Maryland Smith Invitational, at Lawrence Country Club. So just tell me about, your team's, home tournament. What's it like, playing in a home tournament? And tell me about, I believe it's your home course, Lawrence Country Club. So just tell me about your home course, Lawrence Country Club.
Lawrence Country Club is beautiful conditions, very
Mhm.
hilly. You know, my first thought before coming to Kansas that Kansas would be flat. It is, except for Lawrence Country Club. So you got some rolling hills there, beautiful course. Greens can be very speedy, and we wanted to make sure that we had a home advantage for that. But part of that home advantage was the number of volunteers we had and
Mhm.
the amount of fans we had. So we call it one team here at the University of Kansas, and it's kind of this one event where we want all the support of athletics from different student athletes at that one event. And with us only hosting every other year, really, we last time we hosted this home event was 2 years ago.
Okay.
We wanted to make sure that we felt like, nobody actually gets to see us most of the time. and this was our opportunity. We had so many student athletes come out that first round actually for us after school came out to support it, and they were loud. And to, make a big putt for me, I birdied the last hole with a big gallery, and the roar that went through the crowd, you don't get that in college golf, except for
Mhm.
at a home tournament. Everybody was there to support you. You might get an extra cookie or two for lunch. You have all the volunteers, and they were dressed up in, full what you would think like football tailgating gear, overalls, jerseys, like everything. They wanted to be here to support KU. And that's very special. Everybody in the surrounding area here is a big diehard University of Kansas fan, and that was felt. We had different members of faculty, we had student athletes, and then we had our families come out. We actually had a couple international families come out for this event because it's so special, and you don't get that feeling very often where everybody is cheering for you.
Yeah, it's
Um,
great to hear. Your team, had the support at your home course, and yeah, I didn't know that your team only hosts every 2 years. I thought it was every year, but that's great. So your team also won the Golf Week Red Sky Classic in Colorado at the end of September. Tell me a little bit about, getting your first win this fall season. And then also your team won, shooting 15 over. So I'm interested to know, just talk about how your team, can win in, multiple ways. Your team won shooting 15 over in the Bahamas, and your team won, shooting 15 under in, Colorado. So just talk about how your team can win, multiple different ways, whether it's 15 over or 15 under.
I think, kind of explaining that 30 shot difference there,
Yeah.
we take what we get.
Yeah.
If the course is going to give us birdies, we know how to go out and make birdies.
Mhm.
If pars are going to be hard, we're going to be mentally there to accept that challenge. And the difference, I think, between Red Sky and the Bahamas is one, we were kind of expecting to win, and the other one was more of an upset. So for
Okay.
us at Red Sky, we knew that we were either one or two ranking wise in that field. And it was that, okay, we should win this. We can win this. How are we going to execute? And I think that course did offer up more birdies, but you could also get into some big trouble very quickly. Um, so I think for us, and this is part of a problem of actually a home tournament, is when you see it so much and you want it so bad, how do you deal with that pressure?
Mhm.
And we had a different variation of that for the last three events, and we won them all. That speaks volumes to our mindset as a team, but we had to accept what we were given,
Yeah.
and we're, be aggressively conservative. Sometimes there are going to be opportunities that you put yourself in that you need to hit a wedge shot close because you're expecting to make a birdie. And how do you deal with that mentally of, I should do this. How can I do this? And that's kind of the difference between those three events was rising to that challenge of how can I actually get this done now?
Yeah. So Lauren, at the Red Sky the Classic, you had a difficult first 2 rounds, but then you shot one under your final round. So just tell me about, what did it mean to you, and how did you rebound, to shoot the one under after, a difficult first 2 rounds at that tournament?
I think, my problem the first two rounds was just not trusting it.
Okay.
And I wanted it badly and I knew I could do it and I was so close and I
Yeah.
just struggled off the tee. I wanted to control it. I wanted to play perfectly, that I didn't accept being imperfect and I
Okay.
would steer it and make mistakes bigger. And you cannot do that, particularly on a mountain course. There's just not many courses where you can get away with that in championship style golf. So I definitely struggled on that. And then that third round was, you know what? I can do this. I've done the work. I need to trust myself. And that was the difference between rounds one and two and three. Really came back, made the birdies, played a little bit more conservative off the tee, so I didn't feel like I had to
Mhm.
be perfect and just accepting that it was going to be a challenge, it was going to be a battle, but I had to take what I was given and I couldn't force it.
Mhm. Yeah. So Lauren, recapping, the fall season. Obviously your team had 3 wins in a row. That's a program record. So, how special is this, and what does it mean to you, that your team, won three tournaments in a row, to end your fall season, and create a program. created program history. What does this mean to you? And what do you see for your team, or what do you hope, going into the spring season that begins for your team at the end of January?
I think having 3 wins kind of validated that we are getting better as a program.
Yeah,
And one of the big things that you start thinking about as a senior is what is my legacy when I leave here? Did I help leave the program in a better place than I found it? And I think, you know, halfway through the year, that answer is starting to be yes. But we have a lot of work to do. Our goal ultimately as a team is to make the national championship, be competitive into that postseason. We just missed it last year by a spot,
yeah,
and that hurt.
hmm
And we think that we are a good enough team. We have the depth, we have the talent. When we can get four counting scores of us playing well, that is going to match up against almost everybody in the country. And
yeah,
we have that confidence with that. And now it's, now that we're expected to do it, how can we do it? And that's going to be different. We've always felt like a little bit more of an underdog, like we've been counted out at times. But
hmm
now that we have some higher expectations, how can we rise to meet it and exceed it? And that's something special that everybody on the team is kind of bought into that vision and really excited for.
yeah,
Going forward into the spring, I think there's a lot where we still have opportunities to win, particularly at that 1 day event and then into UCF. Westbrook comes to mind. Those are all courses that we're returning to that we can see it. We can
hmm
visualize it. There's going to be a lot of birdies at all of those locations. How can we go and execute that? And I think that makes us hungry going into that. But we also have in the back of a mind of we just need to keep getting better as individuals to push it to postseason. And that postseason is really what's driving us. But we're trying to make those little goals along the way.
yeah. So Lauren, as you mentioned, we talk about this now. Last year, your team, obviously, only f the top five teams advanced, through regionals, and your team was sixth, at your regional in Washington. Your regional, I followed college golf. I believe it was one of the, toughest ones. You had, Stanford, Duke, Virginia, Arizona State was there, San Jose State, even some good teams like Virginia Tech, Alabama didn't make it through. Even your team is really good and they didn't make it through. So just talk about, how difficult regionals was last year, being the first team to not advance to the national championship, just being, the sixth team, with the top five advancing. Just how much motivation is that for, this year? Especially being your senior year, how much motivation is that for your team, um, you know, making it to national championship?
Yeah. I mean, we have four seniors, and for us, it's the
Mhm.
last dance.
Yeah,
How can we make this happen? That's something we've wanted since our freshman year.
yeah,
And this is the last chance.
hmm
Let's make it happen. It almost would feel better if we weren't six and we were seventh at Clay Ellum, because then you're like, okay, well, we have more improvement. But
yeah,
when you're one spot out, it's kind of like, ouch, how could I have cut that one or two shots? And you kind of get the, oh, we almost could have had that. But I think that made us hungry. We all wanted to work harder and we're even more motivated to go and make it to the national championships. I think we're starting to get out of the cycle of, hey, we made it to regionals now as a program. Before I transferred in, they'd only made it to regionals once. And in the last 2 years, we've gone back to back. And I think that speaks volumes to the types of players that Coach Cool's recruiting, to the development that's been done. But now it's okay, we've been 2 years in a row. We're ranked very well now. How can we continue to improve? And yes, regionals is great, but we want to push it to get out of regionals. We're going to be great for the opportunity, but we have things to do now. I think that made us really hungry over the summer, over the fall, and it's pushing us through the spring now.
yeah. So Lauren, you've talked about this a little bit, but obviously Kansas is known, for your men's basketball team. They're the number one, team in the country. But you've mentioned, you want, Kansas also to be known for, women's golf. So just talk about, the strides you're making, to make Kansas, women's golf one of the best teams in the nation. Obviously, your team had 3 wins this fall, and just tell me about basketball. Do you get to go to basketball games often or not too much? Just talk about making your women's golf Kansas known, also for your women's golf team.
Absolutely.
Mhm,
There are some nice perks of being a student athlete,
mhm,
and I lost my voice like crazy for the UNC at KU game.
mhm.
We were just screaming the entire way. There, any sporting event that's home, I'm gonna try to go to. And me and Johanna go to almost every single KU women's volleyball game.
Okay.
It actually works out to where Thanksgiving break, we're going up for an away game that we just want to go and support KU women's volleyball. We're very big on wanting to show out for all the student athletes. We know the time and effort that has gone into their training. We can see it. We're in the weight room with them a lot of the same times. Go and support, go and watch it. And it's so exciting now that so many sports here at KU are doing well. Um, Last couple of years, I've lived with some soccer players. For them to go out and win the KU, win KU the Big 12 championship when they didn't make it to the Big 12 championship the year before is huge. And
Yeah.
that's kind of the culture that's being set from top down. Travis
Mhm.
Goff is an amazing athletic director, and he wants us to be in everything school.
Yeah.
Football and basketball, they're going to be the cash cows. They're bringing all the money for us that
Mhm.
we get to take part of because we share in their success that way. But we have this desire as just an entire athletic department to be the best at every sport we can be. And we constantly want to get better. Everybody is so supportive for us that it's not football, basketball, they have these resources. But as a non-revenue generating sport, sometimes at schools you don't have access to those resources. Everything here is for every athlete. If I needed to go take an ice bath or get extra like muscle work done, it's just a phone call away.
Yeah.
It makes it so easy that, we have this desire as a program to make everything better. And then particularly for golf, we wanted to, you know, we're a top we're a top school now. We
Mhm.
want to make recruiting easier. We want to make things better and leave it better than we found it as a program.
Yeah. Well, Lauren, I'll just say, your basketball team is number one in the nation, but I'm a UConn fan, so we've won the last two national championships, and we have a pretty good women's team. But yeah, since our men's basketball team has been doing well the last few years, I've been getting into college basketball a lot. It's been pretty fun. Well,
The rings don't lie, so we'll
yeah,
give you that one.
yeah. Uh, let's talk about, more of the spring season. So obviously, second tournament, you'll play at UCF's tournament at Eagle Creek, which used to be your home course. So just talk about, getting to play back in Orlando at the beginning of February and playing at, your former home course. So will you have, much friends or family at this tournament and just, getting to play at your former home course, will your knowledge be helpful to yourself and your teammates, given that, you've played at this course, a lot throughout your career?
Yes, I will have a lot of friends and family out.
Mhm,
It's very humbling when you go out and you start to have a gallery, and especially when you're an away team,
mhm,
almost when it's not your team's home event. I have great people down there, great support system that want to support me, and I'm really looking forward to that. I had the
yeah,
last couple of years we've played there, a couple of the girls that maybe taught some golf classes, clinics, volunteered with them. They came out, and so their parents pulled them out of school, and they were able to go and watch and
mhm,
come cheer. And so I had this little gallery of 8 to 14-year-old girls just following me around the course. And as someone who once was that 8 to 14-year-old little girl, just looking and admiring these college golfers, it kind of reminds me why you do this. It's kind of, you want to inspire that next generation. You want to give back. And again, that goes into the leaving things better than you found it. Can I inspire that next generation to kind of play? And then, you my family will absolutely be out there.
mhm,
My dad plays a lot of golf. He's a scratch golfer. He's very, very good. and my brother starting to play more and more. And so they'll actually go back and forth like, oh, she keeps leaving every putt short. And it's good feedback for me, but it's always very funny to watch some of the reactions that you get. You know, people want it so bad for you. And that's what I have to be very careful of when I go back is I know the course. I could easily put it in autopilot and I'd have a range that I'd probably shoot behind. But I need to treat it like a tournament. And it's not just another round at Eagle Creek. I really have to be intentional when I go there. But I know how the putts are going to break. I have that deep insider knowledge where I've played there for so many years. I know what the putts are going to do. I kind of know where the hole locations are going to be. That's a huge advantage. And I do try to share that. It is a fairly easier course, particularly ball striking wise. And then your real adjustments that you're making are going to be short game wise. You know, we're going from bent grass, played a lot of bent grass in the last, really in the fall, to going to Bermuda. And
Yeah.
that knowledge of knowing Bermuda greens and kind of knowing, okay, when things get bumpy, the grains typically into you on this hole. So like just little chip shots, wedge shots, putts. That's really where I'm going to see my advantage.
Yeah. So two things I want to talk about, based on what you said, Lauren. First off is, like Eagle Creek, you have familiarity with that course. When you go into a tournament and you're familiar with the course, like you mentioned, like Wisconsin, Wisconsin Westbrook, in Arizona, you're familiar with that, playing in college. So when you're going into a tournament at a course that you're familiar with, is that, better or more beneficial to you than if you go into a tournament at a course you're not as familiar with? And then just tell me more about, the support and how special it is, when you get support at tournaments. You mentioned you'll get a lot of support at UCF's tournament in your hometown, then you had a lot of support, at your home tournament back in the beginning of October. So just how special is it when you get, lots of support, at your tournaments?
So, starting with kind of that first question there,
Yeah.
definitely beneficial to me when I know a course. I know how to better prepare. I can visualize it and I can start to see the shots emerge in my head.
Yeah.
And then it's just adapting to the conditions. I like to be able to visualize it, to have more information than not. I'm an analytics major, so I will take all the information I can get. Sometimes you can get information overload where you see too many shots that you've done before and not only just the good. And so you kind of have to just filter it, take that course knowledge, filter it down, and then use it for good and don't see all the bad that you've played at that course before, if that makes sense. And then support wise, when you're at a tournament, it's huge. For me, I don't get to see my family very often. At tournaments, they didn't have the opportunity to make it out this fall. So realistically, I think that's going to be the only tournament where I see my family is at UCF. And it's special, a lot of people at home, they understand more of like the training casual golfer side of me, and they don't get to see me in my element. So this is kind of showing them a different level of me. And you get the support, you get the text messages, you get to see the faces, and it's just very uplifting when you get that. And it's something that I've loved and appreciated playing at UCF the last 2 years, that I can get to see my support system. And you know, I owe a lot of my success to my support system.
Yeah.
I didn't get here alone. I didn't work in a bubble. I want to kind of play well to show them, like, as a thank you for being part of my support system. Like, thank you for allowing me to be able to do this. And, kind of pull them inside of the ropes and, show them what that different aspect of me is like.
Yeah. That's great to hear you have a lot of support and that, you're close with your support system. So yeah, it's really great. So Lauren, you're from Orlando, Florida. Obviously a lot of golf there. You can play there all year round. So just tell me about growing up in Orlando. What age did you begin playing golf? How did you begin playing golf? And just tell me about some of your earliest memories, like junior tournaments or anything you grew up playing, growing up in Florida.
Yeah, I was born in Chesterfield, Virginia, which is just south of Richmond, and
Okay.
lived there for a few years till I was 12. So
Okay.
had a little experience with the cold, knew it wasn't for me. And my dad was an avid golfer. Dad played baseball in college, got into golf, went from being a lefty baseball player to a righty golfer. Still puts left-handed, so that's a little odd, but he he loved golf and he had the golf bug really bad. And so one of the things that my mom told him was you can go to the range, but you got to take Lauren with you. And so I was always there. And so from the time I could walk, I had clubs in my hand, be outside in the yard, hitting little shots to dad. He'd catch them, bring them back, and we'd just have a blast. That was something that we did together. Then there's this very clear mindset for me. I was always part of the first tee. Great program up there in Richmond with the first tee up there. Very grateful for them for inspiring me and have a couple mentors that are still up there. And they put on this little Halloween putt-putt course, glow in the dark, and I was the youngest one that played and I won. I'm like, "Oh, wait a minute. I can play this and win and look at the cool trophies I can win. This is fun." So then on my eighth birthday, I went and I played kind of our version of the club championship at the time. It was 6 holes, and I was 8 years old. Second place was a 13-year-old boy. So I was the only girl, I was the youngest, and I won by like 13 shots. Like, okay, this is what I want to do now. And it just really hit for that competitive instinct of, wait, I'm good at this. I can win and I enjoy winning. And this gives me the best opportunity to win. And that kind of just inspired me to keep going. I was such a little golf nerd. I would take around this book called like Jack and Arnie, and that was in first grade, and I would just read it. And it's like a 600-page book, and I was obsessed with golf. So then my dad's company was going to send him to either Denver or Orlando. None of us in my family are really good with cold weather. So like, okay, well, let's go to Florida. And then it just happened that God opened doors in the right time for me. I got involved with a couple academies, got some really great coaching, and got better and better. And at each place, I was where I needed to be. So I started playing competitively at 8, played a couple tournaments in Virginia, but then really took off in Florida. So a lot of my junior career was all in Florida. Got to know the FSGA staff very well because I stayed in Florida a lot. I wasn't someone that would go out of state for different tournaments, trying to be a little bit more economical on how we spent for golf. So stayed a lot in Florida, played a lot of Florida junior events, played a lot of FSGA. Didn't start playing AJGA until the summer after my sophomore year of high school. And then again, didn't want to leave the state, so it required so much more to get into a local Florida AJGA than if I had gone out of state. But then I got an exemption. I just kept playing the Florida circuit. So realistically, by the time I'd gone to college, I hadn't been west of the Mississippi before. And
Okay.
so college is what has really taken me to playing more on like that national stage of going coast to coast now, instead of just being very isolated in the state of Florida. But I think particularly the years that I played a lot of Florida junior golf, we had so many great players that are now on the college circuits that are now on the pro levels. And it was great competition, kind of once in a generation talent that was all congregated in Florida.
Mhm. Yeah, so Lauren, two things I wanted to ask. How was it for you at age 12, moving from Virginia to Florida? And you mentioned growing up, as a junior, you mostly played in Florida. You didn't, start playing AJGA till about your sophomore year of high school. So just tell me if you did, did you get to play outside of Florida at all, growing up prior to college, or were you just mostly in Florida, as you mentioned?
I started traveling a little bit more kind of my junior, senior year. I got invited to a couple AJGA invitationals and wanted to kind of explore, but maybe played 5 events outside of the state. Because
Mhm.
also then my last couple of years of high school, we had COVID, so it shut down a lot of things. Um, but really wanted to just go and play against the best competition. And a lot of the times it was in state. very, very fortunate for that. Um, yeah, I'm just very grateful that I had great opportunities where I didn't have to travel as much.
Okay.
I traveled, I want to say after signing initially in high school to, I made a bigger trip for me and went to South Carolina and then to Missouri, like closer towards St. Louis area. And that was as much of a travel. I played once in Connecticut. That's actually how I got recruited.
Okay.
They were playing the girls junior PGA there. And then, yeah, that was, I think those are the three big ones that I played out of state. And then I played once in Texas for the U.S. Women's Floorball. Yeah, those are the four events I played outside Florida.
Yeah. Growing up, as a junior, what were some of your, favorite, junior or amateur tournaments to play in? And just tell me about some, tournaments you play in outside of, college, like in the summer.
Yeah. FSGA holds a special place in my heart.
Yeah.
I have played those for a very long time now. I'm bound to be very close to the record for most top 10 finishes. I've been very close to
Okay.
winning a couple of those before.
Mhm.
It was nice to actually break through this year, but some of those events that really are distinct in my mind are from the courses. So the Sea Island Women's Amateur, I love that course. I was part of
Mhm.
the inaugural uh, group at the for the tournament there on the women's side.
Yeah.
The Sally is extra special. The Sally for me is the food and the treatment. 6 days of golf for a very affordable price on the ocean, and they cover every meal. And it's you get treated like a pro there. Um, Always fun to play. If you can play a couple pro events, go
Mhm.
play Florida Women's Open. The courses for me is what makes it. I always liked playing like the Bears Club. We got to play there this year. That's kind of a bucket list course. It's just so nice. Um, Got to play at PGA National. Played AJGA at Bay Hill was always one I loved to play. AJGA at Innisbrook. That was my first AJGA. Special place in my heart for that. Didn't get to play the Copperhead course there for that
Okay.
event, but they will go back and forth now. Just extra special when it's courses that you see on TV that you can go play. Because
Mhm.
there's always going to be that in the back of your head. Actually, our event in January as a college team, we're at Superstition Mountain and they host an LPGA event there. So every year when that LPGA event's on, we try to play it pretty similar to what they do. And we're always, okay, what did I shoot? Who would I have beaten? And you always kind of have that back in your head of that comparison of, getting to play like the pros would. That's what makes different tournaments special to me.
Yeah. So you mentioned, the course is special to you. What have been some of your favorite courses that you've gotten to play?
Ooh. Um, Bay Hill's always special to me.
Mhm.
In Orlando at Mr. Palmer's course, the history and the legacy that he has left there is very palpable. And he did a lot for the Orlando area, just as for like, junior athletes in general, not just golfers. But you can still feel that legacy when you go there. That's an extra special course. I think American Dunes this year, you
Mhm.
walked onto the course and it hits you the significance of that course. You go in, there's a memorial, great conditions, great layouts, but it meant more than golf there. And
Mhm.
so you kind of feel like you're on hollowed ground for that. That was definitely a big, I don't think I've taken as many pictures as I have at American Dunes. Um, for me, I like maybe it's a slightly more open off the tee golf course. And I've always enjoyed playing out in Arizona. I think that has fit my game well. I enjoy playing in the desert. I'd never played that before. So every time I get to go play in the desert, it's such a treat because I'm not used to that. A lot of the courses out there have been special. We got to play Monterey Country Club,
Mhm.
Monterey Peninsula. Um, a donor had us out there for 9 holes. Gorgeous conditions, and just driving by that area was stunning. So for me, it's kind of that you have to have the good course, but then you've got to have that little something extra, and that really keeps it in mind for me.
Yeah. So Lauren, you kind of touched on a little bit, but you won this year's Florida Women's Open. You shot a final round of 69. So just tell me about, getting to win the Florida, Women's Open this year. And how special is it to get to win, in your home state?
It was so special to win that event. Again, I've played FSGA tournaments for a long time now and had always been close,
Yeah.
but had never won one of the big ones. And was feeling really good at where my game was. And I could see it. It was just how to make it consistent. So started off the summer doing the Florida Women's Am, which is stroke to match play. Played good, just ran into somebody that was making more birdies on me. You're like, oh, okay, ouch. Probably my best round that I had played. And I went home. Like, okay, that happens. Play the Florida Women's Stroke Play. Work my way into that final grouping. Had a couple holes with a lead. Kind of crumbled on myself. I'm like, okay, ouch. I knew it was close. How can we just seal the deal? And then we got to the Four Women's Open. And, there were great players in that field. Seeing a couple of the senior ladies in that senior division went on to be top 10. And one of them actually, Lita Lindley, won the U.S. Senior Women's Open. Great players.
Mhm.
Charlotta Sorenstam was there. So it's players that I grew up watching. You're familiar with the names. You're hitting next to them on the range. That's special. And then Florida has a pretty good purse where we do attract a lot of Epson Tour players. So Epson Tour, mini tour players, club professionals, very, golf, pro forward there. And then you have some really good amateurs. And so it was a good field, very excited to play. That, you know, playing the practice rounds felt really good where my game was. I had a great plan. I could see the course, and then it poured.
Yeah.
Course got long, course got soft. Okay, it's going to be a challenge. You're going to get a lot of mud balls. Again, how can I rise to that challenge? First day shot 2 under, and I had the lead. But okay, wasn't expecting that. I was on the harder course, I felt like, to score, and I had the lead. Second round, switched courses, shot even par after I started very poorly and fought it back to even par the last couple holes. So for me, it was okay. The easy course I didn't play well, but surprisingly for me, the scores weren't very low. And I think part of that was just the conditions were a little muddy, a little harder to not make some of those bigger mistakes. And so that even par round was very solid, kept me in the lead going into that final round. I'm starting to feel it. I'm a little nervous. I'm warming up. And I birdied the first 2 holes. And I'd been 2 under that first round, and nobody had been close to that score on that course. And so I kind of know in the back of my head, the only person that's going to catch me or take me out is me. I just need to, absolutely still trying to make birdies, but let's not do anything stupid here. And, you know, put on the accelerator, but playing aggressively on conservative lines. What I'm most proud of from that round is it was bogey free. So I was 2 under through two, and I'm playing with everybody that could catch me in that group. And I know that I just got two ahead, and I just kept playing my game. No bogeys, very consistent. Got a little lucky on 17, made a big long putt, but if you had painted the hole on the green, it would have been center cup. Like it was perfect speed, perfect line, just happened to drop for me. And that took it over to 5 under for the event. And I then had a little bit of a margin. Coming down 18, I start to see the gallery come out. And because I, played a lot of Florida events over the year, I had a lot of friends. And even a lot of the FSGA staff, it was so cool to see them come out. My I'm friends with a lot of the rules officials. I know the staff. they came out and they watched. And when I finished, we were rooting for you so much. We're so glad that you finally won. Like, we're so proud of you. And to have that, um, to get that hug with my mom at the end of the round too, that was just so special. Um, she she's my biggest fan on the course. Like, she comes out to more events than anyone else. She had an accident at the Florida Women's Amateur where
Okay.
she ended up severely messing up her foot. And that didn't stop her from coming out for those next two events. She was there. She actually just had surgery on it to fix it. She messed it up pretty good, but she was out there supporting, even though she would have been in a lot of pain because I just have that great of support systems. And that's the people that were there is even if they're hurt or not feeling well, they're still going to be there for me.
Yeah.
That was extra special.
Yeah. I believe I saw the the hug with your mom on social media after you won. So yeah, that was really congrats on your victory, and I'm sure that was really special for you, to win that tournament in your home state, and just to have your mom there and be able to hug with her after that. I'm sure that was very
Yeah.
special that you'll have
And
for the rest of
then
your life.
to do it as an amateur,
Yeah.
you know,
Over.
eventually I'm going to turn
Yeah.
pro,
Okay.
but I'll get to go back and defend that one.
Okay.
But I had it once as an amateur. I got the
Yeah.
low amateur little board that goes with it, and I get to go back and defend. That's going to be extra special too.
Yeah. I know that's your most special victory, but it's just is this your biggest victory to date so far? Would
There's
you say?
there's not a lot of events that I've played that would be bigger.
Okay.
That's definitely extra special. I was able to win the Citrus Golf Trail Women's Invitational
Okay.
to and 2021, last week of 2021. And that was very special as
Hmm.
well with that one.
Yeah.
That one was a battle to the last nine holes and really the
Okay.
last five where I took the lead,
Hmm.
one by one shot. And that final hole is an island green, par three. And that was special because that was coming right after COVID and a lot of my friends were playing that event. And so they rushed the green and absolutely doused me in water. And I tried to run and get away, but that was another extra special win there.
Yeah. So correct me if I'm wrong with these next two questions, Lauren, but I believe it says you were homeschooled in high school. So tell me about being homeschooled. How was that for you? And how did that come about? You being homeschooled. Just tell me, a little bit about that.
So I am very grateful to be homeschooled. I have a
Okay.
younger brother. We in Virginia, we were a little farther away from some schools. I went to a private school.
Okay.
Private school wasn't really going to be functional for both of us. And we moved a little bit further in the country, had, a little bit more away from things. And
Yeah.
my mom is very, very good and educationally minded. And
Okay.
so she found us curriculum that was written as if the teacher was talking to us. And so we would read it, go through it. If we had any questions, we would ask her. But it was like a written out lecture that we would read and then do the schoolwork.
Okay.
The advantage for me is that saves me so much more time. And so the time I could have would be, how much a school is waiting for other people to do things. I was able to go and get my work done. If the weather, rain was coming in the afternoon, well, why don't you go practice in the morning? You can always do school later. You're just on your own schedule.
Okay.
That freedom was huge for golf. That also we started homeschooling in Virginia, and then I transitioned uh, to Florida, which made it a lot easier on me. I know the big thing that people always say, oh, how did you socialize being in golf? I always had friends that played golf. I was
Okay.
part of an academy. You know, I think it actually made me a little bit more social in the fact of I was never afraid to go talk to someone a little bit older than me. I would approach them because that was who I was playing with on the golf course.
Mhm.
And it made me more social. It gave me more time and it gave me the flexibility to practice how I needed to practice. So that was a huge advantage for that.
Yeah. Lauren, just tell me about some of the friends you have, some of the friends, growing up in Florida you played with, and then, just tell me about some of the people you get to play with, when you're back home in Florida. Like, do you have a group of people
Yeah.
you play with from
Very
junior?
connected into my academy. And so like the number one person I will play with every day is my swing coach, Dean
Okay.
Hartman. We're always out there together.
Hmm.
A lot of my friends are playing golf at a big stage now, so we're all over the country. So
Okay.
it's nice, like anytime I go to a collegiate event, I
Hmm.
probably have three friends that we played a lot of junior golf together.
Hmm.
And where, you go up, give hugs, like, hey, when are you going to be back in town? When are we going to go play? Getting everybody on the same schedule is very, very hard. So sometimes it's more of, hey, we're playing the same tournament. Let's go grab dinner. Let's go play practice rounds. And then, hey, come back for a day. We'll go play. A lot of it's more of that. Winter break's a little bit more chaotic. Everybody wants to get their family time in because you don't have that for so much of the year now. And then we're going to go play tournaments. So looking into the tournaments in the spring, I could easily, even at the Sally, I could probably fill like there's 20 people that I could just call up today and have a conversation like we haven't, you know, not spoken in however long. Like we were just good quality people. Yeah, just so many names come to mind on that one, but
Yeah.
uh it's been extra special. Florida, we're just a little bit more connected on that. Like we just played so much golf together over the years.
Yeah. So Lauren, I believe your freshman year you were at LSU. Then you transferred to Kansas after your freshman year. So correct me if I'm wrong on that, but what initially drew you to LSU your freshman year? Then after that, what drew you to obviously transfer to Kansas? And what have you enjoyed most so far about your time at Kansas?
Absolutely. I was recruited after playing at a Connecticut event, and then I came back, started talking to LSU right away, pre-COVID. A lot of college golf kind of changed. COVID coming out of that, having COVID years, more transfers, very different environment than it was pre-COVID, I feel. And the opportunity to play for such a prestigious program was very enticing. I believe when I signed, they were the number one like program in the country for that week at least. Like
Okay.
they were ranked so well. And they had this kind of track record of developing to the LPGA. That's very huge. That does a lot in recruiting. And it's warm.
Yeah.
Great factor. When I was transferring, I really wanted someone to give me the opportunity to play and play coast to coast, not just in the Southeast, not just in Florida, Georgia anymore, but go coast to coast. I realized that, if you're going to go pro, first round of Q school is in California. I'd never played out there before. I'd
Mhm.
never played in Denver. I hadn't really played mountain golf. I hadn't played desert golf. There was so much more that I realized I needed to develop after that first year. And so it was very eye-opening, kind of made me reprioritize. And Coach Cool really recruited me hard. At 20 minutes, I think, after I entered the transfer portal, I got a phone call from her. Like she was right on it. Very grateful for the opportunity to play here, and we play coast to coast. This year, like you said, we're going from really Denver area, like Vail, Colorado, going to California, going to Arizona. We've played in Texas now. We've played in the Bahamas. We'll play in Florida. We played in Tennessee last year. We played in Michigan. Never been that far north before. It's great experience and great opportunities to be in. And something I've learned really in the last 2 years, when you're a school that's maybe a little colder, you go to where it's warm. You don't go from cold to colder. When you're south, you go from where it's nice and warm to where it's cold, and that can be a little bit of a shock. I much prefer it going to play where it's warm. But the opportunities that I get to play coast to coast, the opportunity to put your name in the record book, the opportunity to go and set program records year in, year out was huge for my recruiting.
Yeah. When you were recruited by Kansas, obviously, the last few years Kansas has done, very well, but Kansas has not always been known for their women's golf, program as we know. So, what enticed you about Kansas? And you mentioned you wanted to set program records, which you've done now. Just talk about the growth that, your team has had, from when you transferred there to now, your senior year.
Yeah. For Coach Cool was coming in.
Hmm.
She recruited me after her first year here at Kansas. So
Yeah.
I came in her second year coaching here.
Hmm.
And I remember I think I'd gotten some recruiting mail from Kansas before, and I don't think I ever responded to it.
Okay.
It wasn't on my radar at that point. But then I was familiar with how she really set up the Denver program to over exceed expectations.
Hmm.
And she definitely had that track record of getting the most from her players and developing them. And so that gave me that, hey, things are going to be changing. And then I came in, I met the team. I could see how the program was changing, and I wanted to be a part of that change.
Yeah.
And again, it was just doors opened. There were other places that recruited me when I was in the transfer portal, but there was a reason I wanted to go with Kansas. There was no excuse to why University of Kansas cannot be a top team in the country. And
Yeah.
I could see that mentality changing, and that was very enticing to go put your name on that legacy as well.
Yeah. So Lawrence, is something interesting, I see about you. Your bio says you like to fish. So tell me about your interest in fishing. How often you get to fish and just, how did you get, interested in fishing? Just, tell me a little bit about that and some things, outside of golf, not including fishing that you like doing.
I think for me, I don't always have the patience for fishing. I like to catch.
Okay.
If the fish are biting, I'm gonna go try to be out there. I don't
Hmm.
have a fishing license in Kansas. I don't get the opportunity to go out much. That's just with how busy we are.
Yeah.
But if I'm in Florida, I really want to. And there has to be some reasons that are stopping me if I am not going fishing. Anything outdoors has always been an interest of mine. So whether that's fishing, like deep sea is one of my favorite because that's the best tasting fish.
Okay.
If it's freshwater, I'm going to catch and release. I'm not huge on that, but kayak fishing, we have a kayak and we can take that out in the backyard and do some bass fishing on that. And that's very interesting because you go to the fish. You're not bringing the fish to land to you. You're going towards it. And extra cool little thing, a smaller fish can feel like a bigger fight when you're on a kayak.
Hmm.
Extra special. But if you can go catch grouper in the Gulf Coast, like Gulf of Mexico there, it's great tasting.
Yeah.
Hogfish is amazing. I think fishing for me has always kind of been in the family. My
Okay.
grandfather on my dad's side was a big fisherman. My mom in college worked as like a first mate on a fishing boat and was very good on that. So one of the things that my parents like to do is go fishing, particularly during like Thanksgiving when they were dating and newlyweds, would be just go wade in the water and go fishing for dinner. And that was just kind of always something we did as a family. And it's very therapeutic and it teaches you a lot. And it feels like a good skill. And that's something, you feel guilty if you binge a TV show sometimes. If you're constantly moving, sometimes you just need a little activity to kind of settle, but still
Mhm.
feel like you're doing something. And that's a good aspect of fishing for me. But anything outdoors, I do love. I do love watching baseball
Okay.
almost every night if I can, and it's baseball season and it's on. And they just my phone starts blowing up with notifications and big stats person. So any sport that I can really get my hands on, I'm probably going to watch. Again, that's part of the reason why I love going out and supporting KU women's volleyball. I love
Hmm.
going out for when it's softball, baseball season, and I'll sit there with my little notepad for particularly softball and baseball, and I'll be doing the stats on, little pen and paper.
Yeah.
It's just good relaxing for me and
Hmm.
kind of more of a recovery aspect, but still feels like I'm being productive, like I'm doing something.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite baseball team? Or do you not have a favorite baseball team?
The Rays is
Okay.
definitely the hometown team.
Yeah.
Trying more and more to go to every stadium that I can.
Okay.
Uh, would love it if the Rays would stop trading off their good players.
Hmm.
Let's stay strong through the All-Star break and continue on. But they kind of break my heart. But really hoping that I get to see them here in the near future. I know they're not playing in Tropicana anymore for the next year with all that hurricane damage, but I
Yeah.
still that's the local team.
Well, my team broke my heart, the Yankees. They lost in the World Series, so
I was pulling for y'all on that one. I
but
really wanted the East Coast team to win.
well, most people weren't pulling for us, but because we have a lot of World Series and things like that. But anyway, so two more things I wanted to talk about, Lauren. You're a senior right now. You mentioned you're an analytics major and your future plan is to pursue golf, hopefully professionally. So just talk about your senior year. Just your time is winding down at Kansas. So just how much are you gonna try to relish the last moments you have at Kansas, and then just talk about being an analytics major. What drew you to that major? What have you been learning, and what do you like about being an analytics major? And just tell me about your future plans to hopefully pursue golf.
I got into data analytics because it's kind of what my dad does. And
Okay,
so it was something that it was always discussed around the dinner table. I felt like I had a little bit more of that background, and I knew that school for me was going to be my safety net for should something ever happen in golf where I couldn't play, I would have a degree that was very employable. Not necessarily enjoyable, but employable. I
okay,
do have that natural mindset of being very analytical, don't always have the patience for coding, but I do have that mindset of wanting to get as much information put together to make better decisions. And so the data analytics degree that I have right now is with the College of Business. So a lot of it is coding to work with big amounts of data and information to find decisions and to build predictive models, kind of on the more technical side for that end, but it's ultimately about making better decisions.
okay,
Something very applicable in golf, very much in instilled into me from my dad, even in sports, just being that stats minded, looking and doing retrospectives about your rounds, very much how I was wired. A little bit of, you know, nature and nurture in that one. And then
mhm,
for me, as soon as our team season is over, I'd like to go pro.
okay,
I feel that probably the best competition for me is going to be on that pro circuit.
yeah,
And you have the chance of making money and not just spending money. And that seems more enjoyable to me than playing a summer of amateur events and then going pro for Q school. But to just go Q school, play where you can play against the best competition you can, and go push yourself, try to get confident as a pro before going on to Q school August, September time. So that's kind of my time frame. This is my last semester of a hard push.
yeah,
Luckily, with how NCAA rules are structured and being homeschooled, I actually completed 60 credit hours of college level credits
mm,
before entering college. And so some of those have transferred and it's made my workload easier throughout the years.
mhm,
So I only have two classes, and one of them's a 1 credit hour, 1 day a week class. So I will have a lot more time to focus on golf, focus on finding sponsors, and really kind of getting ready for that final push towards pro life. That's kind of how that semester is planning to be. So I just have to get through this semester, last of the hard classes, and then I'm pretty well set.
yeah. You mentioned so professional golf. Do you have any idea how that will work for you? Do you hope to play in a few tournaments, then go to Q school, or do you hope to just go straight to Q school? How do you envision after college, your your pro career, going after college,
Yeah.
hopefully.
First and foremost,
Yeah.
definitely want to defend Florida Women's Open.
Okay.
That's my priority. That's number one on the list. As soon as I get the
Mhm.
dates for that, that's on my calendar. Um, we'll definitely be there. But then trying to play some mini tour events. So like the Women's All Pro Tour
Yeah.
is a big one. And they, if you can go and work hard enough to in their points race, they'll help you pay for a little bit of Q school.
Yeah.
And that would be extra bonus for me is to have maybe a little financial support, but some really good competition out there. And would love to just whatever it shapes out to be, wherever the best competition is, that's where I want to go play.
Yeah.
Definitely maybe considering some other state opens, but first and foremost, it's got to be a Florida Open and defending
Yeah.
that title there.
Yeah. Well, Women's All Pro Tour. I've interviewed a lot of players in that, and I got to go to a tournament and interview some players. So yeah, if you choose that tour, that's a good tour. But either way, good luck. Hopefully pursuing professional golf after college. Um,
Thank you.
so finally, Lauren, what I want to ask is, what have been some of your, favorite memories about college golf in your time at Kansas, and just what have you enjoyed most about, college golf in your time at Kansas?
Yeah. College golf is really the only time where you're playing for a team.
Hmm.
You're being super competitive. You do unfortunately have to beat out some of your teammates to travel, but there's the camaraderie and there's kind of the silliness that goes on behind the scenes and after rounds, where even if you play bad, you know, odds are someone on your team's played well, you kind of feed off of each other's energy. And so that can work really well. And that's been my experience so far in college is we've had really good team chemistry where we're uplifting each other and supporting. And that's a different perspective. There's been plenty of times in my junior career where if I played bad, I just wanted to put my headphones on, maybe take a nap,
Yeah.
hit the restart button.
Hmm.
But you can't do that in college golf. You
Yeah.
have to have that culture, and it's either going to take you up or it's going to take you down. And we've done a very good job of taking it up. A lot of the memories that I'm going to take, it's just that combination of being competitive with one another and then the goofy stuff on the side, the different challenges. We did a Halloween challenge last year in costumes where we had to play like a couple short game shots, and I tried to do it as an inflatable T-Rex.
Hmm.
Like you don't know what's going to happen with some of that. You don't know, like me and Lily Hurst, who's from England, we went out the other day and we played from the front tees, kind of doing like Bryson DeChambeau does and trying to break 50. We shot 16 under par, which was not bad for us. Just two-man scramble from the front tees. Like there's just extra little things of college golf that you're working towards the same goal, and the people and the interactions you have along the way are extra special. And that's what makes college golf so different. And that's why it is that once in a lifetime, you get 4 years and then it's on to the next chapter, but it can be a really good one.